Violent extremists, elevated by political grievances and racial biases, pose a, quote, elevated threat to America. That's according to a new unclassified intelligence report released 2 months after that insurrection at the Capitol in January. I'm joined now by David Goldenberg, who serves as the Midwest Director of the Anti-Defamation League. Thank you, sir, for being with us tonight. We certainly appreciate it. This was the kind of warning we've heard from other leaders in this country, including the head of the FBI just a few weeks ago when he was in front of Congress testifying. But the more we hear about extremism in this country, including this report today, what is your gut reaction? What sticks out to you?
Well, I think today's report really confirms what ADL has been saying for quite some time. That is, January 6th was not the end. Instead, it's likely the end of the beginning. And so as we look at extremism and we look at the threat, the bottom line is domestic violent extremists are the top domestic terrorist threat facing the United States in 2021.
And to ask the question, I guess, in an oversimplified way, what are these extremists upset about?
It's a good question. For many of them, they've been motivated, certainly in over the last few years, by a number of things. Number one, they look at this sense of that something that is rightfully theirs is somehow being taken away, and they've got to organize and fight to save it. We saw that at January 6th. We saw conspiracies that drove discussions suggesting that the election was fraudulent, that the results were incorrect, that the election was stolen, that their country was being stolen from them. And you saw that also play out during the pandemic, during the early parts of COVID, those stay-at-home protests, the idea that you had to wear a mask to protect yourself and others as well. And so this notion that their livelihoods are being taken away is one element of it. But we should not forget that race and religion also at different points plays a motivating factor with extremists. As we saw in today's report, the idea that race-motivated extremism is a major factor that plays a role in this. And in that case, we're talking about white supremacists.
And how do we even, as a country, when I say we, begin to tackle this? How do you reach the people who need to be reached? Because like so much when it comes to crime and law enforcement, it's hard to do anything until after something awful has already happened.
Well, and that's, your stories preceding this about anti-Asian hate that we saw, right? You have an incredible wave of xenophobia and racism and xenophobia that has taken over parts of our country and is playing out. And ADL stands with our partners in the Asian American community, and we are heartbroken and saddened by the attacks that continue. When we look at the broader issue of sort of extremism and xenophobia and racism and insert and anti-Semitism and insert isms and obias there, it is a growing problem that we have to address. And we have to address it. Government has a role. Education and schools have a role, society has a role, and elected officials and leaders have a role to continue to tone down that rhetoric. When we have members of Congress who continue to raise questions about the credibility of election results now 4 months, 5 months after the election, who are spouting out QAnon conspiracies, ultimately to rile people up and sow doubt in our society and our democratic institutions, that is an incredible problem that fuels what was in this report today. It fuels domestic violent extremists who feel like they've got to take action into their own hands.
And last thing, just a few seconds left. We're looking at footage of the riot from January. We've learned so much more in the weeks since then in terms of that massive crowd that was there that day. It included members of law enforcement. It included members of the military. There are investigations underway if Congress members themselves had a role to do with it. How do we deal with the problem when it appears sometimes that the very people out there designed to protect us are taking part? In other words, the call is coming from inside the House, which elevates the danger of this infinitely.
I couldn't have said it better than you just said it. At the end of the day here, ADL has outlined what we call our Protect Plan. And an important element of it is looking at and ensuring that extremists are not employed by the government, are not employed by law enforcement, are not employed by the military. But we know that extremist groups have outlined a path for recruitment and engagement, targeting members of law enforcement, members of the military, recent retirees. Some of them, militia movements, look at that from a tactical perspective, that they can bring people in who have experience in that area. But what we're also finding, though, is that we have to root out extremists who have in many ways infiltrated our institutions, whether it be government, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be the military. They need to be removed, and we need to take action.
David, thank you so much for your time tonight. This is a chilling issue, and certainly not the last time I'm sure we'll talk. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.